This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
You tuned into a conversation between myself and Matt Wilcock from Shotgun Mistress. The catalyst for the conversation is due to the launch of the group's debut album for Golden Robot Records. It's out right now. In addition to Shotgun Mistress, it must be said that Matt is one of Australia's preeminent extreme and heavy metal guitarists, given his work with the Berzerker, Werewolves, Akercocke, and many more outfits. So, of course, we cover Shotgun Mistress and many other aspects of Matt's long and fruitful career. So here he is, Matt Wilcock from Shotgun Mistress. Thanks for making it. I hope it's not too late for you on a weeknight.
No, it's all good. I've been off work for a few days. I've just been on my RDO, so it's I'm quite well rested. But tomorrow it's back to the grind again.
Mate, work and RDOs. Where on earth do you find the time for work, given all of the music that you produce?
It's I don't know. It happens somehow. I managed to make it all happen somehow. But yeah, it's Usually my RDOs are sort of like this is the first time actually where today I've done like nothing sort of musical. But usually it's like every 7 weeks or whatever it is, I'll get a 5-day period, like a 5-day RDOs, and it's like, right, I've got to do this album or record this or do that. So it's good. It's nice to relax for a little bit.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. But no doubt you're not going to rest on your laurels for too long, but you probably bloody could, given the amount of releases that you've appeared on over the years. I mean, this is a fairly long introduction, but I'll kick it off anyway because I was first. Of course, I've known about you for many years through the Berzerker and Akercocke. But probably you rose to prominence in my eyes, just my ears, I should say, again, with Abramelin and Werewolves, because I love that album. What a time to be alive. Never Enough Snuff, killer album. I had a good long chat to Tim about that album last year when it came out. And I've mentioned Akercocke. You're on 2 killer albums from them, Words That Go Unspoken, Deeds That Go Undone, which is way back in 2005, which just feels like yesterday to me, probably for you.
Yeah.
And then Antichrist in 2007. And then you did a lot of stuff there with the Berzerker, which I'll circle back to the Berzerker at some point later on. But, Antichrist Imperium, the most recent album from Antichrist Imperium was in 2018 called Volume 2. Yeah, every tongue shall praise Satan indeed. But the catalyst for our connection right now is through what you're doing with Golden Robot Records and Shotgun Mistress and the self-titled album you got out there, which is certainly not a right-left turn. I mean, it's to be expected, but it's a killer rock and roll release from you in the vein of it kind of reminded me, and bear with me when I say this because I know it's got a lot of negative associations here, but it reminded me of Reload meets Helicopters. That's what I heard. Okay. Now, I have no doubt you've never got that, but that's what I heard. Because it got that, your guitar playing is very much got that, you're riffing it very junk, like I can tell it's you.
Right.
Is what I'm saying with your guitar playing. I'm trying to think, it's like a gate manifold that sort of slams down at the end of your playing. And it's present on here too, I've got to say, which I think is a glorious thing.
Okay.
So... Did you have to adopt a bit of a mindset, given you are a globally recognised extreme metal guitarist performing in all those bands that I just mentioned, and now here you are playing raucous rock and roll?
When we started, when we started writing and jamming all the Shotgun stuff, I did have a bit of I thought a little bit differently about how I wanted to play. Like I wanted it to be a little bit more sort of, I don't know what the word is, probably just, quote unquote sort of commercial almost. But I guess as we were writing riffs and as we sort of were getting used to each other in the rehearsal room, we, speaking for myself, I reverted back a little bit towards things being a bit more sort of metal. I had there was a few songs. I mean, I wouldn't really class anything on the album as being overtly metal, but there were a few things that, were a bit sort of strummy and a bit sort of, dare I say it, commercial. But like as we sort of got to know each other, and as the band sort of started to maybe find its sound a little bit, I guess that element of my playing sort of crept back in a little bit. It's probably just because it's what I like and what I find comfortable. Mm-hmm. So I guess you can sort of hear that maybe it's me or whatever, but it's I've always loved rock music, and I think this is probably just me trying to play rock, but just with all those, years of heavy metal sort of creeping in there somehow. That's probably the best way to think about it.
Yeah, that's such a great summary, because that's exactly the conclusion that I drew. I was actually going to mention that. It's like, how can you not sound the way you are? Start again. How can you sound any different? I mean, you've been playing extreme metal for so long now that it's just a part of your DNA to play guitar in a certain way. And you've also answered another question that I had, and there's nothing wrong with this at all. There's always these things that, musicians have, I shouldn't be writing music that has any commercial appeal. It's like, well, fuck off. I mean, you've proven yourself 100 times over with the bands you're in. If this reaches even 10% of those people that buy Airborne albums, man, I hope it does something good for you on that level.
Cool, man. Cheers.
So, do you think that the project, or is it fair to say that the project stems from a lifetime of you playing riffs and storing riffs? And if you didn't have them maybe written down, but stored somewhere in a cloud vault or on a tape, given you've been doing it so long. But is this an album that you've been writing for most of your life, do you think, or is it fairly recent?
It's totally recent. I tell you where it sort of come from, and to be honest, I don't think I've really actually told anyone this. A few years ago, I went and saw Ross the Boss play when he was in Melbourne. Not the last time he was in Melbourne, I think the first time that he came out. And, he obviously played all that early Manowar stuff. And it was so good to see like a band that, that early stuff, it's metal, of course, but it's it had a real, to me, that whole night had a real sort of rock vibe. It was a real band, like playing some real tunes, and it just had a real energy to it. And watching that, I was like, I've always thought about playing in rock bands and doing stuff, but watching that, I was like, right, I think this is this is a bit of a sign. It's like I need to sort of do something that's a little bit more, not quite as thought out maybe as metal bands are. Everything's all like airtight into a click and me miles an hour and all that sort of crap. But so it's all quite recent, and I just started sort of piecing together rock riffs, and like I think what's happened with me over the years is, and this has come true like with Werewolves as well, is after playing guitar for so long, and I played with a bunch of different bands and a bunch of different people. It's not about writing good stuff or being good or whatever. I think after doing something for that long, you do kind of get good at making stuff up and like getting, I've got a bit of a formula for how I write and how I play and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
And it's not particularly difficult for me to come up with riffs and songs and music. I ain't saying that any of them are any good. I'm not trumping myself up, but I am saying that like I can write stuff, be it good or be it bad, whatever. That's up to whoever listens to it. But I can write stuff pretty easily. So all the Shotgun stuff, it's literally it's only a few years old, and I hadn't really written much in the way of rock music prior to that. Always listened to stuff, always listened to Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, Motorhead, and I guess more commercially maybe Queens of the Stone Age. And, older stuff as well, and, newer stuff from time to time. But so the influence has always been there. But, all this stuff's kind of new, and, it's new, and it's quite exciting, I guess, because it is, pretty new. So, yeah.
What about when you were selecting musicians? I mean, somebody at your level you can pretty much work with whoever you want at this point, and it's just about whether or not they're available or not. Realistically, I mean, given your resume, seriously, there's very few people, whether it's in Australia or in the US, who have a resume that you've got. But you can pretty much pick who you want to work with. So, what were you looking for in fellow collaborators?
I guess the usual thing of just sort of, I mean, obviously a bit of talent, but more importantly, almost just dedication. People that just are willing to do something. Like, by no means, do you need to have the best players in the world, but you do need to have someone that turns up and just puts in the work. Like, if someone that, it's much more important to have someone that's, pretty good at what they do and they actually work at improving and they turn up for rehearsals, as opposed to having someone that's, killer that doesn't fucking turn up or doesn't learn their parts, and then you're just wasting your time then. So, like the guys that are in the band, like I've known all of them individually over the years. I've played with all of them. They haven't played with each other prior to this, but I know them all. I've known them sort of personally over the years for quite some time. So yeah, that's how it came about. Glenn's a great singer. Dave's a great drummer. I've played metal stuff with Ben before, and I had a feeling it would work, and it would be cool. So that's how we all sort of got together, and everyone's cool. Everyone gets along, which is also really important. And yeah, so it's fortunately it's all fallen into place pretty well, which is good.
Yeah. I like how the press states that Glenn Patrick is in a band or was in a band called Collegians, which features members of Pseudo Echo. I love how that cosign is in there, because I got to be honest with you, man, I love Pseudo Echo.
Okay.
Yeah,
they're still doing stuff. I think they spend a lot more time writing as opposed to playing. But they're still active, so to speak.
They're band from our youth, though, aren't they? With Funky Town and Beat for You and all of that stuff. And I play covers, so I've played all of that material.
Yeah.
And so I get to see, and I know Queensland's a bit different. You're in Victoria, aren't you?
Yeah.
I know it's a bit of a different, we're a rock place, so rock is rock and oldies, that's the stuff. And I've seen people run from the other side of a room to get on the dance floor when we start playing Funky Town.
Yeah, of course.
I know the impact that it has, and we're all dags at heart. I think ultimately when we hear our favourite tunes from when we're 8 or 9 years of age, I think it's just sort of the way we are. But what about you guys? Just COVID lockdowns aside, is there the intention to perform live?
Yeah, 100%. We've got obviously everything's been up and down and just a mess, over the last 12 months or so. We've got a bunch of shows booked in with Electric Mary, like around Oz. The nearest ones being early August in Perth and Adelaide. And they're looking pretty promising, but, who fucking knows? And then the week after that is meant to be Sydney, and that's looking pretty bleak at the moment. So, and we've just had a few shows cancelled, and I think there's another one that's cancelled because it's meant to be with some guys from Queensland actually, and I don't know whether the fucking borders are closed or open or whatever. But yeah, it's obviously it's messed up everyone. It's messed up people work, their life. So while I'm pretty annoyed the whole thing, I can be thankful at least that both me and the missus are still working, which is good. Some people lost their jobs, so it's pretty boring not to be playing shows. But at the same time, there's people that are in a pretty poor position in life at the moment. So yeah, that's sort of the way that is.
Yeah, I talk about COVID a lot in the podcast, actually, and I'm extremely cynical about the lockdowns, I must say. I think up until recently, Sydney had it right with surgical lockdowns, lockdown municipalities, local LGAs. But this whole thing about locking down millions of people at a time, like you guys had to go through 112 days.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean, for God's sakes,
Yeah, and, then everyone's got an opinion about this whole thing and how it's been managed and what it means and all the rest of it. And I've watched a lot of I watch a lot of sort of podcasts by, pretty educated individuals that are, that are talking about both sides of the argument and just the way everything's been handled. And, like I'm just a bloody heavy metal guitarist, so I haven't really got much to bring to the table. But, the one thing I'd say is no one seems to give a shit about people's, like, they lock things down, and it's like, fucking hell, a lot of people are really struggling mentally. Like I'm pretty fairly stable, and I've been working the whole time, and there's been times where it's fucking annoyed me, it's and when they did the recent lockdowns again, all the gyms closed, all the shops closed and all that, you're just back into that sort of state of despair again. And, there's a lot of people out there that are struggling, like really struggling. And I don't know, when you see the numbers and the deaths and all that, like, obviously death's a horrible thing, but I don't know, there's been one death this year, I think, and it's horrible, but I don't know, like, I don't know. I'm not qualified to talk about it really, but it is pretty.
But you're a citizen. You've got to live through it like we all do. So you're entitled to have an opinion on that basis. And I'm just feel the same way. And my ultimate view is that if you have a comorbidity, if you're elderly, stay away. For the rest of us, we've got to get out there, and businesses still need to run. I was reading a horrendous report about the amount of businesses, small businesses in Melbourne, CBD in particular, that not are failing, have failed. So past tense. And these are people that there's no insurance for a business failing. You don't, it's not like you can claim against COVID. It doesn't exist, and this whole drive, and I'm absolutely not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. I'm a journalist. Okay. I've got the qualifications to be a journalist, and I've written for News Limited. But I'm data driven. And this is the issue when you're data driven, you use the data to reach conclusions about which way to go. And I can tell you the government isn't using the data to reach conclusions. They're doing, and this is what's so cynical about your part of the world, it was recently uncovered that Dan had spent $2 million on a research agency gauging public opinion on his leadership through the lockdown, which of course, as you know, was very favourable when it started. And now it's started to ebb away. But, mate, they're populist leaders, these fuckwits. They're not governing. They're populist leaders. They're reacting to what's going to get them re-elected.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I have sort of, I wouldn't say arguments, but I have maybe heated discussions with people from time to time. And, the one thing I'll sort of say is, the government, they've been lying to people for a long time. It's like, why on earth would they be telling the truth now?
Yeah, very true.
So, I don't know. There's, like I say, I've got my own opinion about how things are running and what they're doing, but it's a shit situation, and with any luck, maybe there might be some sort of other side to it that will come out at some point. But
we can only hope, can't we? We can only hope that it's not a zero-sum game, because if it's constantly about having no cases and no cases of community transmission, then we're never going to get out of this. Yeah,
no,
never. So but just talking about the music again and pivoting back to that. So obviously, I found out about you guys I'm on John's mailing list, and I've spoken to Mark. I think I actually spoke to Mark Alexander about you guys, I think. So how did you meet Mark?
We sent off a bunch of, when we did the album, which seems like forever ago now, we sent off like press kits to, like a few different labels. And it's a bit weird because for me, it's a little bit uncharted territory, because if it was like a metal album, then I might have had a bit more of a bit more knowledge about what to do. But because it's sort of something new, I was like asking a few people about opinions on labels and who to approach and this, that, the other. But so we sent a press kit off to a few different places, got a few sort of bites and nibbles, I guess. But the most positive response was from Mark himself. He had heard it. Which I think from memory, he said he doesn't usually necessarily hear the things hear the stuff that people send in. Like he's got a team of people or whatever that will.
Yeah, he said that. Yeah, it's really.
He sort of accidentally, if you will, heard some of the songs and was into it. So we started a communication, and it was. I think we both just took it a bit slowly. Like they put out a few singles to sort of test the water, and we sort of went along with it. And I think for both like Golden Robot or Crusader, which is through them, and us, I think it was a little bit testing the waters and just sort of seeing how each other operated. But I think it's been positive for both parties concerned. And so after the initial singles, they said, yeah, cool, we'll do an album. And it's taken a while, it's been a bit frustrating, but at the same time, the world's changed since we made first contact with them. So it's album's out on Friday, and it's been a long sort of haul to get there, but I think things are looking good. I think they're happy with us, and we're pretty happy with them, and hopefully things will carry on the way they are, which is good.
Educate me here on this then, because I didn't ask Mark this, but how does it work? Did they give you access to the distribution channels effectively, but you do all the marketing yourself and the social media side of things?
You're speaking to the wrong person. Like I said, I did say earlier, I'm just a caveman heavy metal guitarist. We're very fortunate actually, because Glenn, the singer Glenn, he's very clued up in the sort of promotional sort of world in Oz, particularly with radio. So he's in collaboration with them has done quite a bit of sort of press and promo in Oz, and they've handled the label of sort of they've put their focus more overseas with the press and promo over there. So we've done a bit, and they've done a bit. I think basically it's sort of a team effort, which seems to have worked well. So that's good.
Now, just talking about your boundless creativity again, and you mentioned that it's fairly easy for you to write songs. I can kind of understand where you're coming from when you say that, okay? Because I can hear that it's easy for you to write songs. I mean, obviously it is, because there's not really, I haven't heard anything from you which I've gone, yeah, maybe not. Everything you've done is imbued with some quality, it must be said. So it must be, you must be one of the only people I've spoken to, and God knows I've spoken to almost 650 at this point, where it's actually easier for somebody like you to have multiple bands than it is to just focus on one.
I guess so. It might. I've done a lot of stuff over this sort of COVID period. I think the problem is when it comes to writing music and being maybe in multiple bands, it's not so much the writing that's the problem, or even playing the music. It's more the time that's taken up with, like, if theoretically, let's say you're in 3 bands, and if each band happens to rehearse once a week, and then you work and you do this and all the rest of it, all of a sudden all your time's taken up. So I guess over this period of lockdowns and all that sort of business, it's not been difficult to just write music and record it. And like, I'm quite sort of fortunate in the sense that I've got somewhat of a studio set up, so it's pretty easy for me to just quickly do something. Like if I've got an idea, like I'll be watching TV, and if I'll just come up with a few riffs, and it's like, right, get my phone, just video myself playing them just quickly, just so they're there, just no chance of forgetting them. And then the next available moment, I'll quickly just record them into Pro Tools, and then it's all right, that's there. And then build upon it as and when I've got time. So I think, my creativity may not be quite so full on if I was rehearsing and gigging all the time. But I guess over this period, it's I've had plenty of time to just write music, write and record.
Yeah, gotcha. How do you file everything then? Just by date?
I don't know, just band names. I give everything a silly name, and then it's like, that song or this song, and yeah, I have a folder for this band and a folder for that band, and I'll just make a demo of it and keep it on my phone or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an IT person either.
You must have hundreds of riffs and song ideas just in the vault then.
Yeah, I've got drives full of albums and demos and master things, and I've got everything backed up several times because one day my computer's going to break, and then I don't want everything to vanish. So it's all there, it's all saved. Touch wood, and hopefully it'll stay around for a little while. One trick I've got is if I'm recording something, I've done this a lot for Werewolves. Is as soon as I do it, I'll send it off to someone else. So like, Joe, who mixes our albums, like as soon as I've got the guitars done, quick, get rid of them. That way it's someone else's problem. It doesn't matter if I lose them.
So on his head then, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So I just want to talk about the Berzerker because I don't know whether this is the case or not, and I haven't seen anything otherwise. But I was just on Encyclopedia Metalium before our call, and I noticed that it said that the band had, like it said, 2000, had the original dates that you guys were together, and then it had another bracket in 2020 dash, meaning it sounds like as though you guys are back together again. Is that the case?
Not. It's a bit of a weird one. So that. At that time, when we all sort of got together and decided to do something else, COVID happened, and that really messed a few of the guys up. And also at that, so we did a bit of stuff. We wrote a few riffs and got a few songs together and stuff like that. But COVID made a mess of a couple of people's lives, just loss of work and all that sort of business.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Werewolves sort of took off. So I sort of bowed out of the whole Berzerker thing. I mean, nothing was happening at the time. There was a few songs, but there was, Sam, and there's a few other guys sort of on the case at the time. So I've actually bowed out of it. I've not, my time limits sort of reached its sort of pinnacle. I couldn't really contribute, and there was it sort of came to a bit of a grinding halt. I'm not entirely sure what the plans or what they're doing at the moment are, though. But I'm sort of not really involved in it. I've contributed a few bits and pieces, but as it stands, I'm not doing anything with them at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. What about Akercocke then? Is that band still an ongoing concern, even if you're over here and not in the UK anymore?
So I'm not playing with them. I left them quite some time ago.
Yeah, I knew that. But are they? I can't look. I probably should have done a bit more research about this one here. But Akercocke seemed like a band that was going to take over the world there for about 18 months. You know what I mean, though, don't you? I mean, yeah. Terrorizer and all those magazines were all over you, and then it just seemed like a boof.
Yeah, there was quite the sort of upwards trajectory with that band. I don't entirely know what happened. I mean, when I joined them, we did the Words album, and it was very successful. I think the main problem.
Sorry, I'll come back. It's
all good.
Bloody EOS software. Yeah. Does it on a half an hour market every time.
Okay, yeah. I think the problem with that band is they never really got out and toured as much as it's a bit weird because it's such a peculiar kind of music that they did. Like it's very British, and I think that they did very well in Britain, but and they went to the States. I never went to the States with them though, but I get the feeling if they had have pushed and toured a bit more, it may have sort of carried on, but I think just life and people's sort of commitments and mortgages and children and just the general things that happen throughout life sort of maybe made that sort of stuff a little bit difficult. To me it just sort of they kind of just it kind of just died off a little bit. And at the time, I was quite sort of keen to sort of keep writing music and doing stuff. So it just sort of came time for me to sort of depart from those guys. They're all really cool guys, and very happy to have played with them and to know them and to still be making music with Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a weird one because I think they were very much sort of on an upwards trajectory, and then it just never quite happened, which is it's a bit of a shame. It's one of those things, I guess, with music.
Yeah, it was that era before. I always call it pre-smartphone and post-smartphone. 2007. That line in the sand when social media was beamed into our. Social media was right here all the time.
Yeah, right.
And that changed everything. I think that's the demarcation point we've got. And I think Akercocke were one of those bands that could have taken over the world pre-smartphone and then continued the momentum onwards in the same way that like Cradle of Filth or bands like that had well and truly established themselves. I think I could be wrong. It's certainly my opinion, of course, but Akercocke were one of the last bands that had that opportunity. So the band was signed to Earache as well, from memory.
Yeah, yeah.
So did you have any dealings with Al? I know he might have been in the US by then, but did you have to deal with Al and Dig?
Not so much. I'd met them both like several times. I met Al in the States actually a few years prior to that, which is kind of cool because I didn't know he was Australian until I met him, which is cool.
Yeah, but
we'd sort of met Dig and had dealings with Dig. I mean, I don't want to go into it too much, but there was, there's Earache have had a bit of a reputation about, it's Napalm Death made no secret of, there's some of the issues that they had with Earache, as well as other bands. So,
Mortis didn't pull any punches with me. Let me tell you what he told me.
Right.
Yeah.
So there were some issues in relation to when we did the Antichrist album. There was some sort of, I guess money troubles is maybe the best way to put it. Miscommunications, etc. So it's a weird one. Like I wasn't on the contract for the Berzerker, and I was written into the contract for Akercocke, but things were on a bit of a downward sort of slope at that point. But as far as the rest of those guys go, I know they're not fans of Earache. I'm sure they won't mind me saying that.
Yeah. Oh no. Look, you got to express. Look, thinking about podcasting, it's open platform, which means that you're just expressing an opinion. Therefore, it's your own. Your opinion is your own intellectual property at the end of the day. And God knows I've had all sorts of things said on the podcast about people who apparently try to bathe themselves in glory, but should be doing anything but. And look, I'll be frank. Yeah, I mean, I some of the things that I've heard even with artists, because as I say, I've interviewed so many musicians that have been signed to Earache and that have asked me not to air things, which of course I will never do if someone asks me not to air things, but it's just all been a shit sandwich a lot of the time. It's never positive. And Al seems like such a nice guy too, from what he's doing on the Instagram stories, if you've seen them, where he answers fan questions, and he seems like he's in touch. It just there seems to be this disconnect between the band's experience and the label's public image.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, what are they doing now? They're they're a rock label now, aren't they?
Blackberry Smoke and all that shit. Yeah, that's where they're going. Yeah.
Shotgun, we didn't approach them. Actually, a friend of mine recommended. He goes, "Why don't you get in touch with the guy at Earache?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know him, but I don't think it's probably not appropriate. It's not a wise move, I don't think. So we didn't go down that path."
Yeah. With Abramelin too. I mean, that never enough snuff albums, an absolute ball terror. That's very few bands come back after that kind of a layoff. It's about 20 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken. 2011, 10 years maybe, whatever.
It's whatever it is a long time.
But I think we're of the similar vintage, and Abramelin to me were always that band from Victoria. Like the band that you were always like a lot of quality. And Tim's a lovely guy too, based on my conversation with him. So was that something you were drawn to do again? Yourself, was that? Yeah. Yeah,
totally. I mean, I guess they were like the first sort of, quote unquote proper band that I played with. Like when I first joined them, I don't know. It was so fucking long ago, man. I was like a child at the time. It was amazing. Yeah, so that like I'd played in bands in school and all that sort of shit. But so they were like the first, proper band that I played with. Like the first band that, we did the bloody Cradle of Filth supports and we got on a plane and we did this and we did that. And it was all very exciting. And then from there I went on to the Berzerker and then I moved over to the UK and blah, blah, blah. And it is. I never really would have imagined that it would have happened again. So when I came back, and I think it was Rob that got in touch with me first. I mean, I speak to Tim like over the years. Like he's been to London when he was playing with the Amenta, and I went and saw him when we came back to Oz and all the rest of it. But so it was Rob that touched base, and it was basically him that got us all in the same room. And it was a pretty sort of special thing to sort of make it happen again, And to do an album was great. Like I guess I never really would have thought it would have happened, and it took a long time to happen, But it's good. Like it's cool because like me and Dave, like Dave Haley, we're sort of the younger guys in that band. And the thing with that is that we both, as teenagers, loved Abramelin. So it's pretty cool that we sort of finally, however many years later, got onto an Abramelin album. And it's a pretty well received album as well, which is good. So yeah, it's quite rewarding. It's great to sort of have the vinyl and go, wow, it happened. A little bit later than I originally had hoped, but I'm probably a better guitarist now than I was back then. So it all worked out in the end.
Nice, yeah. You got a very strong working relationship there with Dave Haley, haven't you?
Yeah. We've done a bunch of stuff, and we've got other stuff on the boil. So it's good. He's obviously a very hardworking and very talented individual. So it's kind of good to be involved with someone like that. People. It's across the board. There's a few people in my sort of music world that I play with, Shotgun guys included, that that just don't fuck around. They just get the job done. So he's definitely one of them, which is really good.
Yeah. What would you say has been your greatest challenge? Because you have lived on 2 continents and been able to do this and discuss so many of the bands that you've been a part of. I know there are many more, but if you had to choose the greatest challenge or obstacle you've overcome, what would it be?
That's a bit of a weird one. I guess just the whole thing. Like when I was quite a bit younger, but when I sort of decided to go to move to the UK, probably just the initial period of sort of arriving there and settling in and getting a job, and like I bought a one-way flight to go there before I even got the Akercocke gig. So I sort of
okay.
Yeah. So it's funny, like when you're really younger, you can do these sorts of silly things. But I just decided one day, I was like, right, fuck this. I'm gonna because I had dual citizenship. I was like, right, I'll go to England. I enjoyed my time there when I'd been on tour there before. So I was like, fuck it. I'll just I've sort of I kind of felt that I couldn't get much further in Oz at the time.
Yeah.
Not that there wasn't the opportunity to do so, but just maybe me and what I was doing at the time, I was a bit stuck. Mm-hmm. So so off I went, and before I left Oz, I'd been in touch with those guys, with the ACT guys, because we had like a mutual friend who I actually stayed with for a few months when I first arrived in the UK. But yeah, when I sort of got there, I'll never forget it, because I left Oz on like a fucking 35-degree day, and I arrived at Heathrow with a backpack, packed full of clothes and shit, and 2 guitars. And it was fucking snowing. And I'm like, you know, when you touch down somewhere on the plane, they tell you the time and the temperature, and it was 0 degrees. I was like, fucking hell, what have I done?
God. Yeah.
And in that first sort of week, there was a couple of times that I sort of was like laying in this sort of blow up mattress thing in my mate's sort of spare room. And, I think I'd fucking worked hard and I'd saved like the equivalent of 1,400 quid, which is, it's not all that. And after the sort of the first weekend out, that was down to about 1,100 quid. I'm like, fucking hell,
Yep.
what have I done?
Yeah.
But so maybe just the sort of the sort of the mental part of that, has been a bit of a thing. I've said before to people, like, I've never really had any sort of major problems with people or situations or whatever, like there's been issues in my travels and all that sort of stuff. But, none of it's been overly sort of eventful, I guess, So it's just more about maybe mental things, like over the years, like being away from home for like the first tours that I did overseas were away for like 6 months or nearly 6 months. And, there's a couple of times in that period where it's like, bloody hell, like this is, it's sort of homesickness and all that sort of stuff. So it's, I guess maybe some of the mental challenges over the years, that sort of stuff. But, I guess overall it's been a fairly smooth ride so far. Touch wood.
No, good on you. Yeah. So on that note, the transverse question would be: Do you obviously? I mean, I sincerely hope there's greater success for you ahead, particularly with what you're doing here with Shotgun Mistress. But if you could describe a high watermark for you thus far, what would it be?
Like an achievement with Shotgun.
Yeah, or not so much with Shotgun. Just, I mean, as I say, you've done a lot over your career, and so there's got to be a career highlight. What do you think it is?
I guess there's been a bunch of shows, and there's a bunch of memorable shows that I've played over the years. And they ain't necessarily like, the festivals in front of thousands of people or whatever. It could just be like, for a long time, I always remembered playing with Abramelin in Brisbane for the Cradle of Filth support. Like, it's a fucking long time ago. But that show was just, it was an incredible show, so that's always stuck with me. And there's been a bunch of things like that, some of them have been festivals, like big shows. Some of them have just been small sort of club shows or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's always stayed with me. Like just it's always rewarding. I always really enjoy the sort of final process, the final steps of making an album. So like, we've done 3 Werewolves albums, and there's another little surprise with that as well. But, so over the last, couple of years, whatever it's been, we've had that buzz of getting a new album sort of like 3 times. And it's, like, let's say it's a month when it's all taken shape and it's all sounding good and it's getting better and better and the mix is improving and it's sounding bigger and all that sort of shit. So that, I find that quite rewarding. And, it's happening more and more these days because they just seem to be doing more and more albums, it happened with the Abramelin one, bloody Werewolves and, all the rest of it, the Shotgun. Yeah. So it's quite sort of, it's quite rewarding just to have an album that's completed. It's a real sense of achievement to do something like that. So I guess over the years, it's just a combination of really good tours or shows or festival appearances or whatever, and then also just making albums. They're the highlights for me anyway.
Yeah, the consistent side of things. Yeah. Do you get a lot of younger musicians approaching you for advice?
Occasionally, usually just guitar people that might ask about playing or whatever. It's, I don't know. I've taught guitar in the past, so I can offer sort of, the guitar nerd sort of advice to people here and there. But yeah, that's, I guess, happens from time to time, which is cool. More than happy to talk guitar shit with people, so that's all good.
But I think you're doing it in a way, given all the bands that you're in, you've been doing it for as long as what you are, but we're well established that you've got a day job still. And so we're not saying, what I'm not saying to people is that it's not possible, but you have to have multiple irons in the fire and you experience varying degrees of success. Remember when we were kids, right? I always wanted to be like Billy Gould from Faith No More, you pick your guy, and you think, fuck, if I could do that. But the thing is, you've got to basically be Mike Patton, Mike Borden, Roddy Bottom, Jim Martin, and, Trace Bruins as well to sort of add. You got to do everything, haven't you, in order to sort of not even guarantee success, but just to be in the moment. And it's funny how I've taken, and like, I'm only saying this so as a people like this, I'm just sort of bringing it full circle for people. That what I'm doing these days in the media, I'm doing everything myself, from the podcasting through to the writing, through to the photography, through to the video, through to all of the news media stuff, through to I'm ghostwriting for other people. Like, I finally got to a point where I can apply what I learned from trying to be a full-time musician.
Yep.
Which is that you've got to do everything yourself. And it sounds like you've come to a pretty similar conclusion via the way you're leading your life.
Yeah. It's funny, like over the years, I've never seriously toyed with the idea, but I have thought to myself about, the possibility of being like a full-time sort of muser, trying to sort of make ends meet purely by music. And I think about it for a while, then I talk myself out of it, and I think about it, and then I think, I don't want to, like, for example, like, if I was to teach guitar, and if I was to play in a cover band, and if I was to do this and I was to do that, and maybe if I was to work in studios as like an engineer or something, you could sort of make ends meet. But I taught myself out of it because I don't really want to play music that I don't like. Like, I'd much rather sort of just go to work, which I've got a job and it pays well and I'm happy, and everyone's got a job. Everyone needs a job, whether they like it or not. But the thing with music for me is it's entirely a passionate thing. So everything I do, I love doing. I've taught myself, I used to work in studios, like just a Pro Tools engineer. I've taught guitar on the side whilst having other jobs. So there's been times throughout my life where I've done, more music-related stuff as a job. But, and all that has put me in good stead for nowadays, because it's like, nowadays everyone does their own sort of recording and stuff. Like, most guitarists will do their parts at home and then take it to a studio to reamp it. A lot of singers will have a small studio set up and they can do their own vocals. So it's good to be sort of, I guess, after this many years, to be sort of somewhat self-sufficient with all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, I'm not the brightest person when it comes to like sort of internet and social media and all that sort of stuff. But obviously you've got to have a social media presence, and you've got to know, you've got to be on it with Instagram and Facebook and all that shit, which, like, I get it and I can do it to an extent, but I don't really like it. But if you want to be sort of, you've got to be out there like all the time, and content and channels and YouTube and all these different fucking platforms and that. So, it's good to have maybe someone in a band that can do all that sort of stuff. And then if you've got someone in the band that's like an audio engineer, then brilliant. If you've got someone that can act as promoter and call the venues and book the tours and all that sort of business, then, that's great. But I guess, going back, like when I was a kid, maybe, you couldn't do that sort of stuff. No one had fucking Pro Tools at home, and no one had like a vocal booth that they could do their own vocals in. And, times have changed, like some for the worse and some for the better. So it's nice to be able to keep a lot of it in house, to be able to make your own albums and do what you want, and not to be too far in the red money wise. So. Yeah, it sort of opens things up a bit for people, I guess, which is good.
Mate, great note to end on. Before I let you go, Shotgun Mistress. Okay, so look, I always say this on the podcast. You can stream the music, and that's one thing, and you'll get 4/5 of fuck all in the cent as a band. But if you buy the product, you'll support the band directly. The money will go directly to the group. So have you got physical product, and where can people pick it up from? Online, I mean.
Cool. So we've got our own shop, which is you can quite easily access either through Shotgun Mistress Facebook or Instagram or .com.au or probably Twitter, but I'm not too au fait with that. But I think everyone in the world's got Facebook. So if you search for Shotgun Mistress on Facebook, there's plenty of links to. We've got CDs out, which are on pre-order now, which will probably be, some of them have been dispatched already because the release day is Friday. Mm-hmm. So we've got albums and we've got a whole lot of T-shirts and bits and bobs. So if anyone wants to support us and help us out, because, everyone needs a bit of help in this day and age, then that would be really cool to go via there and, buy an album or buy a T-shirt. And in turn, when we come and play, we'll buy you a beer.
Well, killer material. Everything you do is imbued with quality, Matt. So congratulations on just a stellar career to
cool,
date.
Man. Cheers.
And I look forward to just seeing what you come up with next, be it via Werewolves, which I thought was one of the albums of last year, I've got to say.
Cool, man.
And just what you're doing here. With the rock stuff with Shotgun Mistress, man, just please keep on playing that guitar, man, because people, you're giving a lot of joy to people by doing that.
Nice. Thank you very much, man. That's really nice of you to say.
No worries, brother. All right. Well, thanks heaps for the chat. Appreciate it.
Cool. Cheers. Take it easy.
Thanks, man. So there you go. My conversation with Matt Wilcock from Shotgun Mistress, Werewolves, Akercocke, so many others. Abramelin, we talked all about it throughout the conversation, so I hope you enjoyed it, because if you did, there's plenty more just like it over at scarsandguitars.com. My new website will be launched sometime soon, given today's date is Saturday, 17th of July, 2021. Thanks for the support, the ways in which you can show me some love, and I hate doing this, guys. I know that putting this fucking bumper on and asking you to like, subscribe, share, and make comments and stuff, it's a pain in the ass, and literally nobody listens. And I don't blame you, because I don't either, but if I don't say it, I'm not asking for it. So there you go. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I host the Scars and Guitars podcast series. I hope you enjoy what I do, because I love doing it. Thank you for tuning in.